There is not a moment that goes by when police are riding behind me where I don't fear being pulled over.
When you're driving down the street, you know, and those blue and red cherries come on behind you, you all of a sudden get a tingle, your heart starts to race, even when you know you've done nothing.
I will light you up. Get out!
Wow.
Now!
Wow.
Get out of the car!
For a failure to signal.
Adrenaline pumping, pulse quickening. A routine traffic stop makes most of us anxious. But for too many Black Americans, such routine encounters with police can also mean the difference between life and death. Walter Scott, Samuel DuBose, Philando Castile. For a number of those whose loved ones have been killed, the fear and anger at police is wrong. And for some, those sworn to protect are instead viewed as oppressors.
They are here to assassinate us. They are here to kill us because we are Black.
My nephew Philando was murdered by a St. Anthony police officer in Falcon Heights, Minnesota. Seeing my sister's son, my nephew, shot and killed in a car by another police officer. You know, it was devastating.
Philando Castile's life was cut short on July 6, 2016. He was 32 years old. On that fateful night, Officer Geronimo Yanez makes the call to pull over Castile.
I'm gonna stop a car, I'm gonna check the IDs. I have reason to pull it over. The two occupants just look like the people that were involved in a robbery. The driver looks more like one of our suspects just because of the wide set nose.
The situation escalates in a matter of seconds.
Sir, I have to tell you, I do have a firearm on me.
Don't reach for it then. Don't pull it out. Don't pull it out.
Less than 40 seconds after approaching the car, Yanez opens fire.
Phil did everything he could do. He had his hands in plain sight. He offered information.
Did you see any effort to de-escalate?
No, he didn't try any other non-fatal approaches.
Officer Yanez would be acquitted on charges of second-degree manslaughter and dangerous discharge of a firearm. He would later be let go from the St. Anthony Police Force, but the family of Castile would receive nearly $3 million in a wrongful death lawsuit. There's no evidence Castile was involved in any robbery, and as a law-abiding citizen, he had been granted a permit to carry a concealed weapon. Philando Castile was beloved in his community. He worked in St. Paul as a school cafeteria supervisor.
He was a bright, caring individual. He loved the work that he did. He loved his mother and his sister, his whole family.
I can tell you miss him.
Oh yeah, without a doubt. I think about my nephew every single day. It could be a song, it could be a kid I see walking down the street. Dreads, I think about Phil.
The pain of sudden loss still lingers, and for his Uncle Clarence, the fear that this could also happen to him remains.
Driving while Black and dealing with law enforcement is one of the most serious and deadly encounters that could happen to a person of color. The seriousness of an African American dealing with police has been a problem in our country for 150 years.
An ABC News investigation in partnership with our own stations examining traffic stops has revealed stark disparities.
Every one of these young men we talked to can recall getting stopped by police.
This is an issue from coast to coast.
In a number of major cities across America, Black drivers are far more likely to be stopped by police than white drivers, when accounting for the racial makeup of the cities and counties. In Minneapolis, where George Floyd was killed, 5 times more likely. Chicago and San Francisco, 4 times more likely. In Philadelphia, Los Angeles, Raleigh, nearly 3 times more likely. For Philando Castile, being pulled over was a frequent occurrence and caused financial hardship. According to a complaint by the ACLU, Castile was stopped 52 times between 2002 and 2016, sometimes twice in one day, and in 1 year he was stopped 8 times.
Does it offend you that he was pulled over that many times?
Yes, it does. because it definitely means he was profiled.
The traffic stops resulted in 86 minor traffic offenses and $6,588 in fines and fees, though half of the charges were dismissed.
This is sort of the tragic example of what happens when we use the justice system as a piggy bank. When fines and fees are used for revenue and we incentivize police to pull over more people.
What kind of things are we talking about?
He gets pulled over once, the first time, fines and fees are imposed. When he can't afford to pay those fines and fees, his driver's license is suspended. And Philando Castile faced the same impossible choice that everyone faces. You either stop driving, in which case you can't access any of your basic necessities, or you take the risk and continue to drive, which is what about 75% of people do, including Philando Castile. The next time he's pulled over, now he has a misdemeanor charge because driving on a suspended license is a misdemeanor in every jurisdiction. So this is how we take somebody who just on the basis of their poverty and induct them into the criminal justice system.
In Chicago, where black people are 4 times more likely to be stopped, Edward Ward told our station WLS he maintains a mental checklist that he goes through when being pulled over.
I have my hands 10 and 2 on the wheel. I'm looking at the officers, big smile on my face to appear non-threatening.
A program coordinator for Chicago Public Schools, Ward says he's lost count of the number of times he's been stopped by police. Most recently in July, when he took this video.
I'm actually being stopped again by the police. There's a lot that comes with the fear. There's the fear of being falsely accused. There's the fear of being presumed guilty. I mean, and some of us as Americans were granted the presumption of guilt until proven innocent.
A number of African Americans have described to me being treated as suspects first and citizens second. Is that what you see playing out here?
It's hard to feel fully your sense of citizenship when the police are treating you more as a suspect. So, for example, the last time I was pulled over by a police officer, I think might have been 35 years ago.
Wow.
So it just doesn't happen to me. I'm a white middle class, college professor.
Take your safety pouch off the sun visor, roll your window halfway down, and place your safety pouch on the window, and put your hands on the steering wheel.
In New Orleans, black Americans are pulled over at a slightly higher rate, but enough so that Loyola University student David Price invented this safety pouch.
Traffic stops turning deadly or just over-confrontational because of people reaching for the information is something that really has been needed, just because that officer may mistake you reaching for your documents for something else. So that's why I created this in hopes that it eases the tension.
And ABC News found that in Louisville and Houston, black Americans were stopped at roughly the same rate as white Americans. But despite parity, the fear remains. Houston Police Chief Art Acevedo says he's had difficult conversations around race and policing with his own family.
It's a conversation my father had with me in Spanish as a Cuban immigrant, and that I've had with my own kids. I've been here 3.5 years. About 162 officers have either been fired, resigned in lieu of being fired, or retired. So that's not a few bad apples, that's a few bushels of apples, right? And so it is smart to have that conversation, because you want to conduct yourself in a manner where you don't give a bad cop the opportunity to act with a bad heart.
And there are those fighting for institutional change. After the death of Sandra Bland, who authorities say died by suicide in a jail cell, days after being arrested in a confrontational traffic stop outside of Houston, lawmakers passed the Sandra Bland Act, mandating that all Texas officers receive de-escalation training.
Reform. What needs to happen?
There's so many simple things that we could do. One is separate the financial incentives. Stop using the traffic code as an excuse to do a fishing expedition. Keep the roads safe. Stop speeders, stop drunk drivers. But don't use the traffic code and the vehicle code as an excuse to fight the war on crime, because we have to recognize that the vast majority of people who are pulled over, searched, potentially humiliated, are going to be innocent.
In fact, in 4 out of the 6 cities where data was available, black Americans are less likely to be found possessing contraband than their white counterparts.
We're less likely to find it with Latinos and African Americans because the threshold of suspicion is lower. So they're routinely subjected to these searches even though they're not carrying anything illegal.
For Clarence Castile, The time to change is now, and he's taking matters into his own hands. In 2017, he joined the St. Louis Police Reserves.
Why was it important for you to do that?
This whole thing about being a police reserve started before PHILANDO was shot and killed. My whole idea behind it was to work with police officers to learn a little bit more about what they do, learn some of their terminology, and then take that information back to the community and share it with young people. And I wanted firsthand knowledge of that so I could share that information. And then I wanted my people to see me in this uniform. But after Phil was shot and killed, it became even more important then, because I wanted them to know that even though this horrible thing had happened to my family, we could still find a way to work together.
Coming up.
How many times do you think you've been pulled over by the police in your life?
Oh, I can't count.
Why one doctor wears scrubs every day, everywhere.
Hi everyone, George Stephanopoulos here. Thanks for checking out the ABC News YouTube channel. If you'd like to get more videos, show highlights, and watch live event coverage, click on the right over here to subscribe to our channel, and don't forget to download the ABC News app for breaking news alerts. Thanks for watching.